weeks.
So this is going to be on the agenda for 2 weeks. I know Supervisor Kuehl, you wanted to say something. It's not agendized, so I think you can say something.
Yes, I wasn't going to say a discussion of the content, but wondered if there was an ability in the report back to underscore that the sheriff can actually not take money away from, as it's my understanding, from the park system and put it somewhere else, because without our approval, there can't be a transfer between budget units. And I think it's good for us to know that, even as we look at alternatives.
Yeah, I think as a matter of clarification, and maybe County Council would weigh in on this in terms of whether the sheriff has the authority to do so or not, and put that to bed immediately with your permission, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Correct.
Can County Council comment on that for purposes of clarification?
Absolutely. Yes, Supervisor. Supervisor Kuehl is correct. And generally, at a high level, the law does not support the transfer of funds between budget units, absent board authorization to do so.
Therefore, Madam Chair, the directive that speaks to instructing County Council to report back with the appropriate drafts that necessarily vet the recommendations here should include that and other issues that may not have been anticipated otherwise.
Agreed. Okay, so that is for October 13th. Any other specials?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have one.
Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a motion which you have agreed to co-author that relates to item S1, and I'm going to read it in for a vote today. Since the Safer at Home order was issued by the Department of Public Health in Los Angeles County, many industries and sectors of our economy have been detrimentally impacted. In order to balance people's health and safety with their economic welfare, DPH has had to hold back the reopenings when it deemed the county was not ready to safely advance. There have been some industries that are currently allowed in Tier 1 that the county has yet to advance. As such, the county has periodically had stricter limitations than the state, including for breweries and wineries. DPH has striven to root all these decisions in scientific data, and we must carefully balance public health and safety with ensuring that businesses are not forced to permanently close. Many small businesses across the county, including breweries and wineries, have been struggling to make ends meet as they have been forced to operate in a more restrictive business model. Given that the state of California allows breweries to partner with a third-party permitted food vendor to operate at a limited capacity outdoors, it would be prudent for the county to realign with the state and advance to this step. While the county moves forward into this next step, it will be critical for the breweries and wineries to adhere to the public health protocols, including, but not limited to, masks, social physical distancing, and regular cleanings. To start, DPH should establish outside operations for reservations only and assess the impact, if any, of these reopenings. DPH should also include a step-up plan for expanding the capacity hours of operation. We therefore move that the Board of Supervisors direct the Department of Public Health, working in concert with County Council, to ensure alignment with the state protocols to safely reopen breweries and wineries in 1 week. The reopening shall abide by strict safety guidelines, including but not limited to outside operations, limited hours of operation, required reservations, appropriate social distancing, and all appropriate safety measures. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Solis.
Yes. I also want to present an amendment to the motion. Do we need a second on her motion?
I was a second because I co-authored. Yeah.
Okay, so Madam Chair, excuse me. I would like to enter in the following amendment. I therefore move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the Department of Public Health's recommendation to allow card rooms to operate outdoors with safety measures prepared by the Department of Public Health, including appropriate physical distancing, mandated masks, and no provision of food or drink.
I would accept that amendment to our motion, Supervisor Barger.
Okay. Supervisor Kuehl, you wanted to say something?
And I would like to say something as well. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to. Thank you. I was reviewing the recommendations that Dr. Ferrer presented to us as an aspect of S1, and she did not recommend that breweries or distilleries or wineries be allowed to open. And I really think that rather than make our own decisions, because there are businesses that really want to reopen, and I can't blame them, that in my own humble opinion, it's not a great idea to say, thank you, Dr. Ferrer, but we're not going to listen to your advice. So I will not be able to support this motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Ridley Thomas?
Madam Chair, to the extent that this is a read-in motion, and the rules of the board typically suggest that we read in, post it on the agenda for consideration, and take it up at the next regularly scheduled meeting. And rather than indicate what my vote would be yea or nay in this regard, I certainly would suggest that we follow our established protocol, put this on the agenda, have the appropriate discussion, take it up in closed session if it be deemed appropriate by you, Madam Chair, and the board, and have it heard for disposition at our next regularly scheduled meeting. That seems to me to be the more prudent way to proceed with all the amendments that have been raised to the main motion by Supervisor Hahn, the amendment by Supervisor Solis, the comments that you've made. It would seem to me that it would be completely defensible and certainly appropriate to proceed in that matter, and I would so move if deemed appropriate, Madam Chair.
So I'd like County Council to weigh in on this because S1 was an item and it can be reconsidered, and it is related. These items are related, so I'd like County Council to offer an opinion on that.
Supervisor Barger, hi, it's Larry Hafitz. Yes, S1 could be reconsidered, and this could certainly be a motion within that. It would be appropriate. It also would be appropriate if the board wanted to read it in for next time, but it certainly, S1 would allow it to be acted on today.
Thank you. And what I would say, and I hear you, Supervisor Kuehl, but I know that even on schools, weeks ago, Barbara Ferrer recommended waivers, and this board wanted to take a pause to see what our numbers come back at. And I think that's healthy. And I think it's healthy to have these discussions. And the reason why I was willing to co-author this motion with Supervisor Hahn is because we're asking for a week. So we're providing a week to prepare and put the guidelines together to make sure that it's done in a thoughtful and a deliberate way, in which I think Supervisor Ridley Thomas earlier said, when we do things, we should do it in a very deliberate and thoughtful way. And I believe this motion, rather than just saying we're going to let them open tomorrow, providing a week to put together the guidelines is providing that time necessary to ensure that it's done in just that way.
Due respect, I guess, I mean, your motion about the schools at least came out, yesterday. There may have been some awareness for public comment, but there's been no awareness of this for public comment under S1. So, and it wasn't even recommended. So I just worry about just doing this under S1 with no public comment and kind of no deliberation.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Two things. I've already said that I would reserve judgment as to where I'd land on this. But I do want to suggest that we have two issues here. We have a process issue and a substantive issue. And I would think that we would be in a better place should we be able to dispose of this after having had a chance to review this within our own internal offices. It concerns me that this comes before us with insufficient notification, and we've done well in terms of hanging together, and I would like for that to continue to be the case. But that's typically the case because each of us has sufficient notification of what is coming. Therefore, being able to either agree or disagree or have the opportunity to move our respective positions as a result of dialogue and conversation, and furthermore, an opportunity to reflect on what's at stake here. I think to move this quickly against data that is emanating from the state that predicts a surge, and not have all of us have the opportunity to think about this, to talk about it, to, as I say, deliberate and so forth, strikes me as being problematic. And I would trust that we would respect our processes, respect the fact that we can differ on the substance, but allow us the chance to build consensus rather than moving it with insufficient notification. I do make the distinction between the matter involving the schools where reservation was expressed, and yet we ended up with a unanimous vote. And so I do not wish to suggest that not taking it up today means that we won't get to consensus, but I do not feel like consensus can be reached, and it ought to be, if we move it this quickly without sufficient opportunity to evaluate the parameters.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say I do appreciate my colleagues, and as you know, we are a board that has really tried to make our way through this pandemic in the best way possible. I would say that, again, it was important for me that we started having these discussions in open session, and we've had a lot of public comment on this. I think we've had specific public comment many times on the casinos, the card rooms, on breweries, and the wineries. And I just feel like at this point, again, we only meet every 2 weeks. So I feel like this is the way we need to move. And Madam Chair, I'm going to call for the vote.
Okay, Madam Executive Officer.
As amended, Madam Chair.
As amended, yeah.
The motion before you is reopening the breweries and wineries, and as amended by Supervisor Solis for the card rooms. Is before you. Supervisor Solis?
Aye.
Supervisor Solis, aye. Supervisor Ridley Thomas?
No.
Supervisor Ridley Thomas, no. Supervisor Kuehl?
No.
Supervisor Kuehl, no. Supervisor Hahn?
Aye.
Supervisor Hahn, aye. Supervisor Barger?
Aye.
Supervisor Barger, aye. Motion carries 3-2.
Okay, so at this time, it's appropriate to hear adjournments, and we'll begin with Supervisor Solis.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a few here. Yes, I'd like to begin this afternoon. I move that when we adjourn in memory of Fernando Moreno Flores, Jr. Mr. Flores was born on August 3rd, 1933, and passed away on September 20th of this year at the age of 87. He was a third-generation plumber and lifelong resident of Los Angeles. Fernando was a lifetime member and business representative for the UA Local 78 Plumbers Union and was president of the Labor Council of Latin American Advancement for 10 years. He served on the executive board of UA Local 78 and worked at General Hospital providing plumbing services for 16 years. I knew Fernando for more than 30 years, and he was a good, decent man. He's survived by his wife, Guadalupe, 2 children, 3 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, and a host of extended family members and friends who will miss him dearly. May he rest in peace. I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of Jesse Salazar. Mr. Salazar was the executive director of Pathways LA, a great organization which serves low-income children and families. Jesse made impactful contributions to the organization and spent his career advocating for the children of Los Angeles County. He dedicated his life to ensuring that all children from all walks of life can reach their full potential. He was a fearless leader who will be missed by many people in his community. May he rest in peace. I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of Teresa Herrera Maris. Teresa Herrera Maris was born on December 28, 1938, and passed away on September 10, 2020, at the age of 82. Doña Teresita, as she was known to her fellow neighbors and friends, was born in Puebla, Mexico, immigrated to the United States, where she became a lifetime resident of Huntington Park. She was always known for her unconditional willingness to help others. Unfortunately, she was one more victim of the horrific pandemic. Doña Teresita was well known by the community for being very active and kind to others. She was an active member of the Huntington Park Neighborhood Watch Group for over 3 years. Ms. Herrera Maris enjoyed taking care of her neighborhood and discussing ways to ensure the safety of her neighbors. Doña Teresita was an amazing individual, and she'll be missed. She leaves behind a son, 2 daughters, and 7 grandchildren. May she rest in peace. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Ridley Thomas. Supervisor Ridley Thomas, do you have any adjournments? We'll go on to Supervisor.
I do, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay, Supervisor Ridley Thomas.
I was just trying to pick myself up from the floor, Madam Chair.
Okay.
May I ask that we adjourn in memory today of the Reverend Robert Sylvester Gratz, born May 16, 1928, in Clarksburg, Virginia, and passed on September the 20th in Montgomery, Alabama, after a battle with Parkinson's disease at the age of 92. He was a white Lutheran minister assigned to lead a predominantly black congregation in Alabama during the 1950s. And Reverend Gratz, coming from a long lineage of Lutheran clergymen, considered a career in medicine before committing his family's history as a Lutheran clergy person. He enrolled in Capital University at Bexley, Ohio, to study theology and graduated in 1950. During his time in college, he became involved in civil rights activism by starting a club on campus to discuss racial relations, and joined the Columbus chapter of the NAACP. He later married Jenny Ellis, and they moved to Los Angeles, where he served the Community Lutheran Church congregation as a student pastor. After receiving his divinity degree in 1955, he was assigned to the Trinity Lutheran Evangelical Congregation, and there learned what it meant to engage in struggle in Montgomery, Alabama. And after learning of the plan for the now celebrated bus boycott following the arrest of Rosa Parks, he supported and called for his parishioners to participate in what we all know now to be the Montgomery bus boycott. His activism during the boycott made him a target of hate and supremacist groups. And his home was bombed twice, and after the second attempt, he relocated to Ohio with his family. He served on the Montgomery Improvement Association, a group formed to oversee and support the protests following the arrest of Ms. Parks. He was also actively involved in other organizations, supported the civil rights movement, the League of Women Voters, and One Montgomery. He will be remembered as a dedicated advocate for civil rights and gay rights. Had a broad vision of the humanity created in the image and likeness of God, as he would say it. As you well know, he was a contemporary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he is survived by his wife of 69 years, 7 children, 27 grandchildren, 13 great-grandchildren, extended family and friends, and indeed a civil rights community who will never, ever forget him. Supervisor Kuehl wishes to join in memory of V.C. Poe and would simply say it was born on October the 5th, 1959, in Los Angeles and passed on September the 16th in Culver City at the age of 66. She received her bachelor's degree in English literature from the University of California, Los Angeles in 1975, and her master's degree in business administration 2 years later. It was in 1990 that she accepted the position with the UCLA Alumni Association as the Director of Professional Academic and Student Recruitment Programs, thus beginning her 30-year career with UCLA, where she focused her outreach efforts towards African American alumni. Her work and dedication helped bring back engaged and supportive alumni to the university. Her success was recognized and rewarded as she was appointed as the Director of Alumni and Government Relations for the School of Public Policy and Social Research in both 1998 and 2006, respectively, and became the Executive Director of the External Affairs Program at the university, particularly at the Luskin School. She nurtured the program for scores of fellows and hundreds of students, a centerpiece of engagement for the Luskin School and in the world of public leadership. She also oversaw the David Bonnet Fellowship Program, a program from which the County of Los Angeles benefits in terms of those fellows in our respective offices of the chair, and a program that places Scholar Luskin graduate students in a range of elected official offices. In addition to her tireless work on behalf of UCLA, she also taught marketing and management at Los Angeles City College as an adjunct faculty member. She will be remembered for positively impacting an untold number of people through her warm, vibrant, and candid demeanor that brought together students, alumni, and faculty in a very special way that embodied the spirit of service. She's survived by her husband, Keith, her father, Bolden, her sisters, Brenda, Roberta, and Lalita, extended family and friends, students, all will miss her. Sheila?
Thank you, Mark. I knew VC back before the Luskin School had been named for Luskin. She was so incredibly competent and calm and kind. Always an advocate for students. And after I left the Senate, before I ran for this seat, I had the privilege of being a Regents professor at Luskin. And I have to say, no one has been more lost wandering into a classroom than me thinking, I can teach at law school, but what the heck is public policy? And she was an amazing help to me, a real partner in helping me shape my class and understand the students. And I'll always be grateful for her kindness through all the years. She's really going to be missed. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I may, Kurt A. Reinhold, a former resident of Ladera Heights here in the 2nd District, was tragically killed on September the 23rd in San Clemente, California, at the age of 42. He attended Morgan State University in Baltimore, where he focused his studies on psychology and engineering and completed his studies at Clark Atlanta University and received a degree in English literature in 2001. Upon returning to Los Angeles, Mr. Reinhold secured a position in Burbank as an audiovisual technician. He accepted a sales and leasing consulting position in Santa Monica with Nissan, and transitioned to Power Nissan of South Bay and Hawthorne for a sales associate position. He was a former bodybuilder and a youth soccer coach. He will be missed most assuredly as he battled with mental health issues, and after relocating to San Clemente, struggled with the issue of homelessness. A loving father, a proud father, deep in his faith, gentle in his spirit, stout-hearted, and add to that a great sense of humor. He's survived by his wife, 2 children, extended family, and friends, colleagues who will miss him. This, I must say, is another example of law enforcement use of force, and it warrants the kind of independent investigation that we have all been calling for. This is not Los Angeles County, but I think the issue of pain, suffering, and angst around these kinds of shootings knows no boundaries. Madam Chair, may I continue with the balance of my adjourning motions? Susan Warshaw Robinson, born on January the 16th, 1941 in Los Angeles, and passed on September 12 after a battle with ovarian cancer at the age of 79. After graduating from USC with a bachelor's degree in political science, she relocated to Washington, D.C. to accept a position with the State Department. She then returned to Los Angeles and married Carl Robertson. Ms. Robertson was founder of the Westmark School, and with her husband established the Susan and Carl Robertson Program for Tumor Ablation at the USC Keck School of Medicine. She was a passionate supporter of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and served as a member of the Board of Governors. She also served on the board of the Huntington Library. She was the president of the Jewish Vocational Services and a longtime member of the Blue Ribbon Society of the Music Center. She will be remembered as a dedicated supporter and patron of several charitable organizations, and an avid Americana collector. Her love and patronage of the arts, and for her unwavering love for her family and their dogs. She is survived by her husband of 35 years, 2 children, Kara and Chip, her sister Hope, and 3 grandchildren, Lila, Lewis, and Rose. A host of family members and friends and those who have benefited from her work and her witness among us. Susan Warshaw Robertson, Madam Chair. And finally, Leonard Vasquez passed on August the 18th due to complications related to the coronavirus. Mr. Vasquez was in his 80s. He grew up in Fort Madison, Iowa, with his parents and 7 siblings. He joined the United States Air Force in 1956 and married a year later to Sabina Gomez. During his 20 years in the Air Force, Mr. Vasquez served on 5 military bases, was active during Vietnam, and lived around the world with his wife and children. He retired with the rank of technical sergeant and was assigned to the University of Missouri Columbia's ROTC program. After his discharge from the military, he worked at the Veterans Administration Hospital and a restaurant in Missouri. Also operated his own carpet cleaning business and opened a Montessori preschool with his wife. He attended Columbia College in Missouri and earned a bachelor's degree in business. In 1994, he and his wife relocated to Los Angeles to become closer to their family and settled ultimately in San Diego. He was was passionate about the community service and enjoyed tending to the gardens of his Catholic church. Mr. Vasquez was also a dedicated 30-year volunteer with the Meals on Wheels program, feeding the communities of Columbia, Missouri, Los Angeles, and San Diego. He will be remembered as a military veteran for his generous nature, caring for the family dogs, and for his dedication to his family. He is survived by his wife of 62 years, Sabina, 4 children, James, Leonard, Stephen, Sydney, 3 siblings, Charlie, Mary, and Lupe, 6 grandchildren, Anthony, Brian, Gabriella, Isabella, Steve Jr., and Victoria. A life well lived, a veteran well celebrated, and a family who is profoundly grieving, who will miss him dearly. Madam Chair, that concludes my adjourning motions.
Thank you, Supervisor Ridley Thomas. Supervisor Kuehl?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. With profound sadness that I ask that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of a longtime friend, Dolores Press. She was a Santa Monica progressive stalwart, passed away last week, and though she was of an age, it seemed sudden and too soon. She was a member of the City Council in Santa Monica from 1981 to 1984, and the first full-time chair of the Santa Monica Rent Control Board. She was a champion for women's rights, for renters' rights, and for a living wage for hotel workers. She established the city's Commission on the Status of Women and the Santa Monica Farmers Market. A former Santa Monica Democratic Club president, she served on the board of the club until 2014 and was a major figure in their leadership over decades. She chaired the Assembly District Delegation to LACDP, first appointed by Tom Hayden and then elected in her own right, where she served on the Labor Caucus and the Endorsement Committee and was twice named Democrat of the Year. She survived by her 4 children. And I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of Sandra Moss, whose commitment to community and to helping others was just a deep part of her DNA. In 1972, she joined SHARE, an organization of women dedicated to raising money to support services for children with special needs and developmental disabilities. In the mid-70s, she answered a call to help the Rape Treatment Center at Santa Monica UCLA Medical Center. In the early 80s, she became a founding member of the board of the Rape Foundation. And in the late 80s, when the Rape Treatment Center needed to extend its reach to child victims, she played a leadership role in creating Stewart House, which is now an international model for the treatment of sexually abused children. She's survived by her 3 children, Ron, Jennifer, and Harrison, and her sister, Jeannie. And I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of David Binder, who was a distinguished professor of law emeritus at UCLA, where he served on the faculty for more than 50 years. He was a pioneer in clinical legal education, co-authored 8 books on the conceptual frameworks and practical skills of lawyering. He received all 3 of the university's major teaching awards, including the Distinguished Teaching Award, the School of Law's Rudder Award for Excellence in Teaching, and Professor of the Year in 1972. Prior to joining the UCLA School of Law, he was a partner in the law firm of Brown and Brown in Los Angeles and served as the director of litigation for the Western Center on Law and Poverty between 1969 and 1970. Combining their passions for education and social justice, David and his late wife, Melinda, volunteered teaching literacy to underprivileged students in downtown Los Angeles. He's survived by his 3 nephews, whom he raised, Michael, Charles, and Jeffrey. And finally, Madam Chair, I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in memory of John Wasson, a UCLA professor and cosmochemist who died on September 8th. A cosmochemist and passionate promoter of California science, Wasson chased after meteorites all around the world, helping to form the UCLA Meteorite Collection, the largest such display in the West. During his career, he wrote 2 books and more than 300 papers on the chemical and petrologic properties of meteorites and lunar rocks. He even had a chemical named in his honor, wasonite, which is a form of titanium sulfide. He's survived by his wife, Gudrun, and his 2 daughters, Christina and Kirsten. Those are my adjournments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Certainly, there's so much to be said about her, and maybe other members of our board want to say something. I'm just going to say a few words about her. She was the Supreme Court's feminist icon. She just passed away. She was 87, and I know she was hanging on for so long and was so strong even in the midst of her health challenges. She was not just a champion for equality and women's rights on the bench. She was an inspiration and a role model for women in how she carried herself in her professional career. This was a woman who was asked by the dean of Harvard Law School to justify why she was taking the place of a man in her class. And then she went on to graduate first in her class. This was a woman who argued 6 women's rights cases in front of the Supreme Court, won 5, and then went on to be nominated to sit on that very court. She was asked, how many women on the Supreme Court is enough? And she famously said 9. I think about that a lot when I'm asked about the female supermajority we have here on the Board of Supervisors. Ruth is survived by her 2 children, Jane and James, along with her 4 grandchildren. She will have forever changed the trajectory of women in this country.
Can we do all board members on that, Supervisor Hahn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I also move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Samuel Magana, and I know Hilda would also like to say something about him. He was the founder of Diana's Mexican Food Products, and he just passed away at the age of 88. Sam and his family were longtime residents of Downey. And at the age of 14, he decided to leave his hometown in the Mexican state of Durango to come to the United States, come from a rail car in order to evade the border patrol agents and cross the border. He picked fruit and cotton in the Central Valley and took classes to learn English and write in Spanish, since his education in Mexico ended in the 3rd grade. In 1969, he and his wife, Hortensia, opened a small grocery store named after their firstborn daughter, Diana. They converted the back room of the grocery store into their living quarters. Tortillas were among the best-selling products in the store, and soon Diana's first tortilla manufacturing plant opened in Maywood in 1973. Sam never forgot his roots. Employees would stop him in the parking lot, and he would talk to them for as long as they wanted. He also bought apartment complexes around his factory so he could rent them to his employees. For the last 50 years, the Magana family has turned Diana's Mexican food products into a $35 million Norwalk-based company that now includes 5 restaurants, 2 tortilla plants, a tamale factory, and an industrial bakery. Sam is preceded in death by his wife Hortensia and is survived by his children, Diana, Sam Jr., Pencha, and 7 grandchildren.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Supervisor Solis.
Yes, thank you so much, Supervisor Hahn, for allowing me to join you in the adjournment of Samuel Magana's memory. He was a good friend, inspiration to many immigrants in the Southeast LA area. I met him many years ago, but more importantly, he was an icon figure in the famous Patrias Parade that we have every year annually in East LA. That was part of what he was involved in, helping to bring that together. But as you know, he left his home at an early age, 14, for Mexico to work in the United States, and went on to build a multi-million-dollar company, which now includes 5 restaurants, including one in El Monte. And I visited his tortilla plant there in El Monte, was really amazed how inspiring his story is and his whole family. So I just wanted to join in and also give my condolences and thanks to him and his family and many people who will miss him. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just have to say, Supervisor Solis and Han, I read the obituary, and he lived an amazing life and leaves an amazing legacy with his family.
Yeah,
So
he really did. It's a true story of the American dream.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. So with that, I'm going to read it.
I have a few more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you only had two. Sorry.
I know it only says two. I don't know why it only says two, but I have a few more. I also, during the memory of, yes.
Supervisor Hahn, indicate that Mr. Magana's first store was in the city of Gardena, which you represent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know what's interesting about Sam? Certainly, each of us have a piece of our districts that clearly is tied to him and his family, which makes this really special for all of us. I'd also like to adjourn the memory of Maria Carbajal, who was a resident of Harbor City, who passed away at the age of 70. She was the mother of two members of our own county family, Rafael Carbajal, acting director of our Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, and Patricia Carbajal Samsing, manager in our CEO Legislative Affairs and Intergovernmental Relations. She immigrated from Mexico to Los Angeles in 1974 with her husband, Rafael, in search of the American dream for their future family. She raised her children in Wilmington. Maria was an accountant by trade and used those skills to help her husband build and manage a landscaping and general contracting business, 2 meat markets in Torrance and Southgate, and a restaurant in Torrance. Maria was a deeply spiritual and devout woman that leaned on her faith and was an active member of her parish, St. Margaret Mary Catholic Church in Lomita. Maria helped so many by bringing love and compassion to those in need, volunteering through her church, and often simply by befriending those who needed understanding, encouragement, and friendship. Maria is survived by her children, Paola, Guadalupe, Alejandro, Rafael Jr., and Patricia, and her 3 grandsons. I also move that when we adjourn today, we adjourn in the memory of Father Adrian San Juan, who passed away suddenly at the age of 43. He suffered a heart attack while officiating at a wedding mass on September 19th at St. Linus Catholic Church in Norwalk, where he was the pastor. In 2002, while in seminary, he was diagnosed with cancer. He vowed to continue his journey to the priesthood while undergoing chemotherapy. And in 2003, the cancer went into remission, and he was ordained as a priest in 2004. Father Adrian ensured his parish was able to adapt to recent health order changes regarding indoor church services. He organized a team of parishioners to live stream Sunday Mass and build an outdoor church complete with a stage and canopy to ensure that people could continue to have a space to worship. He's survived by his 5 older siblings. And my last one, Madam Chair, is that when we adjourn today, we adjourn the memory of Lou Bodell, who was a longtime founder and owner of Bodell's Shoes. He passed away at the age of 92. Born and raised in Utah, Lou headed to Long Beach in the late 1940s to manage Leeds Shoe Store, remember Leeds, in downtown Long Beach. Lou opened his own shoe store in 1959 and quickly earned a loyal clientele. Lou eventually relocated his shoe store to another location down the street from the original, where it remains today. Lou's son Richard started working with him in the store in 1975 and bought it from his father 20 years later. Although he sold his business, Lou worked at Bodell's shoe store until he was 80 years old, helping customers, even climbing ladders. Lou is survived by his son Richard and will be remembered forever by the half-block street near his store that was renamed Lou Bodell Lane. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I move that when we adjourn today, we do so in memory of Joanne Heyman Bowers, a resident of the Antelope Valley who recently passed away at the age of 88. Joanne was active in the South Antelope Valley Coordinating Council, the March of Dimes Antelope Valley, the Palmdale Lilac Festival, and the Ana Verde Hills Community Organization. She received the Lulu Award for her community service to Palmdale in 1971. Joanne is survived by 3 children, 9 grandchildren, 15 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. I also move that when we adjourn today, we do so in memory of Chief Gary Lockhart, a resident of Laverne and retired chief deputy with the Los Angeles County Fire Department who passed away on September 24th at the age of 69. Chief Lockhart began his county career as a firefighter on May 1st, 1975. During his county career, he held numerous positions, including firefighter specialist, fire captain, battalion chief, assistant fire chief, and ultimately chief deputy. He was instrumental in the purchasing and implementation of Firehawk helicopters and the development of the department's career development guidelines. He retired in 2008 after 33 years of service. He had other passions, including his Harley-Davidson motorcycle, woodworking, photography, but most important to him was his family. Chief Lockhart is survived by his wife, Anita, and their children, Andrea, Sarah, and Ryan. I also move that we adjourn so in memory of Warren Robert Smith, a longtime resident of Santa Clarita who passed away at the age of 83. He was born in Hempstead, New York, and proudly served in the U.S. Army. After discharge, he visited Southern California and met his future wife. He owned Red and Bob's Texaco in Hollywood and was an owner of the same-day courier business Super Delivery Service. He finished his working career at H&B Aircraft Parts in Newhall. Warren is survived by his son, Robert, and 4 grandchildren. Also, Vincent Vince Stefano Jr., a lifelong resident of Burbank and former mayor of Burbank, who passed away on August 24th at the age of 81. Vince graduated from John Burroughs High School in 1957 and attended USC, where he was an active member of the Theta Chi fraternity as well as president of the Trojan Knights and Trojan Squares. After graduation, he attended Loyola Law School. Prior to starting in private practice, Vince was a deputy city attorney for the city of Los Angeles, deputy district attorney for the Los Angeles County, and city prosecutor for the city of Burbank. He served on the Burbank City Council from 1973 to 1977 and as the mayor of Burbank from 1974 to 1975. He also served on numerous other boards and commissions for Burbank and was an active member of the Providence St. Joseph Medical Center and Providence High School communities. Vince is survived by his wife of 45 years, Mary Lou, and their 5 children, Vincent, Robert, Daniel, Ann, and Paige, and 12 grandchildren. And last, I move that the Board of Supervisors adjourn in memory of the following individuals who were identified as indigent veterans by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner and were subsequently buried with dignity and honor at Riverside National Cemetery this past month. Charles Lee Alexander, Army. Ronald Jean Baker, Army. Andrew Braun, Air Force. Thomas Alexander Calviano, Army. Bob Cox, Navy. William Roland Demastis, Army. Vincent Johnson, Army. John Howard Mills, Navy. Kyle Elliott Mitchell, Navy. Edward Murray, Army. Lawrence Julius Polinak, Army. Albert Quinn, Army. Reuben Hensley Scott, Army. Howard Allen Seidner, Army. Jeffrey Matthew Smith, Air Force. May their contributions and sacrifices in service to our county and country never be forgotten. Those are our adjournments, moved by Supervisor Solis, seconded by Supervisor Ridley Thomas. If there's no objection, it's a unanimous vote. That will be the action. Madam Executive Officer, please read us into closed session.
In accordance with Brand Act requirements, notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors will convene in closed session to discuss item CS1, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, item CS2, department head performance evaluations, and item CS3, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, as indicated on the posted and supplemental agendas. Thank you.
Thank you.
and will return to open session once closed session has ended.